Welcome back my channel. It was the year 1979, and America stood on the cusp of new beginnings and subtle change. Gasoline lines had faded from memory, disco fever was giving way to the electric buzz of a new musical era, and deep within the heart of the U.S. Mint, small, unassuming coins were being struck, coins that would one day tell stories of resilience, oversight, and unimaginable fortune. Among them was the humble 5-cent coin, a piece so common that it seemed destined to vanish into wallets, parking meters, and candy machines without a second thought. At first glance, the 1979 nickel appeared no different from millions of others that clinked into existence that year. Designed decades earlier by sculptor Felix Schlag, the coin bore the stoic profile of Thomas Jefferson, America's third president. His gaze remained steady, looking outward with quiet resolve. Behind him, Monticello, his beloved Virginia home, stretched across the reverse in clean, classical lines. Few could have imagined that among these everyday nickels, hidden like a whisper among the shouting multitude, a handful possessed quirks, anomalies, and stories that would capture the dreams of collectors generations later. The machines at the Philadelphia Mint whirred and groaned through endless days and nights, stamping planchets, the blank metal discs, with Jefferson's familiar face. Technicians monitored pressure, die wear, and metal quality, but even the most vigilant eyes could not catch every minor variation that crept into the production lines. It was in these overlooked details that a quiet kind of magic was born. Some nickels carried the ghostly evidence of a double strike, others wore faint, almost imperceptible errors that only the sharpest eyes could detect, a misaligned die here, an overpolished detail there. The 1979 5-cent coin would soon drift from the mint into the vast rivers of commerce. It jingled in the pockets of students hustling between classes, clattered across countertops in dim diners where coffee steamed and conversations buzzed, and sat, forgotten, in the change jars of countless American homes. No one thought twice about it. And yet, hidden within this sea of metal was an elusive prize, a specimen so pristine, so touched by luck and the oddities of minting, that its discovery decades later would spark a sensation among numismatists and dreamers alike. Stories began to circulate in collector circles. An unusually sharp 1979 nickel had surfaced, its fields mirrored like still water, its details struck so crisply that it seemed almost sculptural. Under magnification, the coin revealed perfection rarely seen, no distracting marks, no loss of definition, and a dazzling luster that had somehow survived the decades. Graded by experts at top-tier certification services, the coin achieved an astronomical mint state grade, a near-mythical classification that set collector hearts racing. For those who understood the language of coins, this was more than a lucky find. It was a testament to the fickle whims of production, where the right combination of fresh dies, clean planchets, and minimal handling could yield a masterpiece from machines that otherwise produced millions of mundane specimens. It was like finding a flawless rose blooming in a desert. Dealers whispered of its potential, and at auctions, paddles rose like eager hands at a magician's show. Behind each bidder was a different story. Some had grown up in the era of Jefferson nickels, recalling their first vending machine purchases and snowy trips to corner stores. Others saw an investment opportunity, a tangible piece of American history wrapped in the romance of chance. And then there were those who simply loved the hunt, the idea that something so rare could exist among the ordinary, waiting for the right person to see its worth. The 1979 5-cent coin carried more than monetary value. It carried nostalgia, the spirit of discovery, and a bridge to a simpler time. It evoked images of Sunday mornings spent poring over jars of change, squinting at dates and mint marks, hearts pounding with the hope that just maybe a fortune waited among the nickels, dimes, and pennies. This particular coin, when it finally crossed the auction block, did so with all the pageantry such a rare find deserved. Experts verified its authenticity, its condition meticulously documented. Collectors flew in from across the country, each one imagining what it would be like to hold a piece of numismatic perfection in their hands. The bidding opened with cautious excitement, then quickly escalated into a flurry of numbers, each increment higher than the last. Eyes widened. Breaths held, When the final gavel fell, the room erupted in applause. The 1979 5-cent coin had shattered expectations, fetching an astounding $156,000, a sum that seemed almost surreal for something that had once bought little more than a stick of gum. Its owner, a quiet collector who had stumbled upon it years earlier, walked away with more than just money. They carried the knowledge that sometimes the smallest, most ordinary things hold extraordinary secrets. And as for the rest of us, the story of the 1979 5-cent coin reminds us that wonder still lies hidden in the everyday, waiting for the curious, the hopeful, and the dreamers to discover it. Number 2. In the year 1958, America found itself perched delicately between two defining eras. The echoes of World War II still lingered in the older generation's memories, yet the country was striding forward with a newfound sense of optimism and prosperity. Elvis Presley's voice crackled over radios from New York to Los Angeles. The interstate highway system was weaving a web across the nation, and in the small town of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, a young boy received a shiny 5-cent coin as change for a bottle of soda. Little did he know that decades later, that simple nickel could be worth more than the house he grew up in. The 1958 5-cent coin, known affectionately as the Jefferson nickel, was one of countless millions minted that year. To the casual observer, there was nothing extraordinary about it. It bore the familiar, dignified portrait of Thomas Jefferson, sculpted by artist Felix Schlag almost 2 decades earlier. Jefferson's face was resolute, turned slightly to the left, his hair tied back in the fashion of the 18th century, a vision of steadiness amid a rapidly changing America. On the reverse side stood Monticello, Jefferson's cherished plantation home, rendered with neoclassical precision. Its domed roof and columns symbolized the ideals of democracy, architecture, and progress that Jefferson held dear. For most Americans, the nickel was simply a practical tool of commerce, passing hand to hand in grocery stores, movie theaters, and gas stations without a second thought. Yet, for those who understood the subtle language of coins, some of these nickels held secrets. The Philadelphia Mint that year operated at a steady rhythm, machines clanging and presses thundering day and night. The Denver Mint, too, carried on its operations with careful attention, though even the most meticulous quality controls of the time were no match for human imperfection. In a process involving millions of strikes, slag misalignments, die deterioration, and planchet flaws were inevitable. Most errors were caught and discarded. Others, however, slipped into circulation unnoticed, small anomalies invisible to the naked eye but priceless to the trained collector decades later. Among the regular strikes of the 1958 nickel lurked coins of near supernatural preservation, nickels that, whether by sheer chance or incredible circumstances, avoided the scuffing, scratching, and mishandling that typically battered coins into obscurity. These rare survivors remained locked away in bank rolls, tucked into jars on high shelves, or forgotten inside dresser drawers, waiting for time and history to elevate their worth beyond imagination. As the years passed, the 1958 nickel quietly transitioned from a mundane object of daily life to a cherished relic of the mid-century American experience. Collectors began to notice that finding a perfectly preserved 1958 nickel, with razor-sharp strikes, full steps across Monticello's base, and brilliant, unblemished surfaces, was an astonishingly rare feat. The full steps designation, in particular, became a holy grail among numismatists. Achieving such clarity in the design was difficult, requiring perfect alignment, strong striking pressure, and fresh dies, a trifecta of conditions rarely met in the frenzied production environment of 1958. Stories emerged of extraordinary finds in the most unexpected places. In the dusty corner of a rural bank's vault, an employee rediscovered a forgotten roll of 1958 nickels untouched since the Eisenhower era. In a suburban attic in Ohio, a box of childhood keepsakes revealed a handful of gleaming coins that had escaped the rough tumble of circulation. In each case, the rediscoveries sparked excitement, dreams of fortune, and a deep, almost spiritual connection to the past. Numismatic experts pored over these coins with magnification, studying the tiniest details, the contours of Jefferson's cheekbone, the definition in Monticello's pillars, the gleam of unbroken luster. Each imperfection, Each minuscule scratch or die crack could mean the difference between a valuable coin and an astonishing treasure. Those precious few examples that reached the highest echelons of grading, especially with the elusive full steps designation, were coveted beyond words. As collectors and investors came to recognize the rarity and significance of top-condition 1958 nickels, auction houses took notice. Catalogs described them with reverence, highlighting every pristine detail and historical nuance. Prices began to climb steadily, and what once was a common piece of pocket change transformed into a glittering artifact of American culture and craftsmanship. Beyond its physical attributes, the 1958 5-cent coin carried a resonance that transcended numismatics. It represented a snapshot of a world both innocent and complex, a world where television still broadcast in black and white, where schoolchildren practiced duck and cover drills, where the American dream seemed tantalizingly within reach for many families. It embodied the paradoxes of the era, hope shadowed by anxiety, simplicity crowned with ambition. At coin shows and conventions, collectors swapped tales of their best finds, their greatest near misses, and their lifelong quests for the perfect 1958 nickel. Young enthusiasts listened wide-eyed to veteran stories, inspired by the idea that treasures could still be found in the most ordinary places. Dreams of finding the perfect coin lived on, fueled by passion, history, and a sprinkle of luck. In one legendary case, a collector stumbled upon a 1958 D nickel so impeccably struck, so blindingly lustrous, and so flawlessly preserved that it defied belief. Graded at the highest level with the coveted full steps designation, it triggered a frenzied bidding war among some of the most seasoned collectors in the world. The final hammer price stunned even the auctioneer, a breathtaking $125,000. And yet, other high-grade examples, depending on their sharpness, luster, and pedigree, have commanded values from $30,000 upward, solidifying the 1958 nickel's place in the pantheon of American numismatic legends. The story of the 1958 5-cent coin is more than just numbers, metal, and rarity. It's about the magic hidden in plain sight, the adventure of discovery, and the profound truth that sometimes the smallest, most overlooked things carry the greatest worth. It's a reminder that history is not always found in museums or grand monuments. Sometimes, it jingles quietly in our pockets, waiting for the right pair of eyes to recognize its true value. And perhaps even now, somewhere in an old jar, a forgotten drawer, or the hands of a curious child counting change, another perfect 1958 nickel lies in wait, a little piece of America's past, ready to change a life forever. Number 3. The year was 1999, the final chapter of a century that had seen humankind soar to unimaginable heights. The world was caught between two moments, the familiar embrace of the 20th century and the uncharted frontier of a new millennium. Computers buzzed in every household, the internet spun its endless web across continents, and talk of Y2K filled news reports and dinner table conversations alike. Amid the frenzy of digital dreams and old-world fears, the Philadelphia Mint continued its timeless, rhythmic work, striking coins that would soon pass through the hands of millions. Among them, a seemingly ordinary 5-cent piece, the 1999 P Jefferson nickel, quietly took its place in the flow of commerce, unaware of the extraordinary legacy some of its kind would carry into the future. In the bustling halls of the Philadelphia Mint, machinery roared and thundered as coin blanks were fed into massive presses. The design that had endured for decades, Felix Schlag's timeless portrait of Thomas Jefferson, once again emerged in gleaming metal. His thoughtful gaze and neatly tied hair looked serenely to the left, a steady figure in a rapidly changing world. On the reverse, Monticello's stately facade stood unwavering, a silent witness to history's endless march. Every detail, from the fine lines of Jefferson's coat to the elegant dome of Monticello, was pressed into life with mechanical precision, yet within this mechanical certainty, tiny variations, imperfections, and rarities were born. For most people in 1999, the nickel was almost invisible, a jingle in their pockets, a small offering at vending machines, a casual toss into tip jars. No one could have predicted that certain examples, struck with such precision and preserved so perfectly, would one day be among the most sought-after treasures in modern numismatics. In an age obsessed with the new and the next, few paused to notice that history still lived in the old and the enduring. Minted in massive numbers, the 1999 P nickel was intended for the daily grind, for purchases made without a second thought. Yet, even in this ocean of production, fate conspired to set a few coins apart. Some were struck from fresh dies, creating an extraordinary depth and sharpness in the design, especially visible in the delicate columns of Monticello and the intricate curls of Jefferson's hair. Others benefited from careful handling or sheer luck, avoiding the bumps and bruises that scarred their less fortunate siblings. A precious handful remained in a state of pristine beauty, their surfaces glowing with original mint luster, their details crisp and untouched by time. In the quiet world of coin collectors, whispers began to spread. Dealers at small-town shows, experienced graders behind the closed doors of certification companies, and sharp-eyed collectors scouring their change all began to notice. The finest 1999 P nickels were rarer than anyone had first assumed. Particularly coveted were coins exhibiting the elusive full steps designation, the clear, uninterrupted lines across Monticello's base that spoke of a flawless strike. Finding such a coin was like discovering a message from the past, a perfect snapshot preserved against the odds. Every numismatist knows that perfection is never an accident. It is the product of extraordinary circumstances, a marriage of fresh dies, perfect pressure, well-made planchets, and just a touch of divine luck. In 1999, when technology ruled and tradition shifted, such miracles seemed even more precious. Stories emerged of keen-eyed collectors plucking perfect nickels from bank rolls, their hearts pounding with excitement as they recognized the rarity of what they held. For some, it was a validation of patience and passion. For others, it was the beginning of a lifelong journey deeper into the world of American coinage. At the great coin shows of the early 2000s, the 1999 P nickel began to command attention. Grading companies, with their careful, almost reverential scrutiny, began to recognize the very finest examples with top-tier grades. Coins that achieved an MS-68 or higher, especially with full steps designation, became the object of intense competition. Bidders battled across auction floors and online platforms, driving prices higher as they fought for the right to own one of the best. Collectors marveled at the details: Jefferson's high cheekbone, the delicate arch of Monticello's entrance, the soft yet sharp gleam of untouched surfaces. They spoke in hushed tones about coins that shimmered like frozen moments of history, untouched by the chaos of daily life. Some coins, those blessed with both condition and beauty, crossed into the realm of legend, fetching prices between $10,000 and, in rare, fiercely contested auctions, soaring as high as $90,000. Yet, the 1999 P nickel was more than its value. It was a story captured in metal, a piece of a year that stood on the edge of 2 centuries. Holding one of these coins was like holding a bridge between eras, a reminder of who we were and who we dared to become. Each tiny imperfection, each gleaming surface, each intricate detail spoke volumes about the journey from past to present. In dusty attics, in old piggy banks, in forgotten rolls sitting quietly in bank vaults, hidden treasures waited. Perhaps even now, in a handful of change sliding across a cafe counter, a perfect 1999 P nickel lies unnoticed, waiting for someone with the eyes to see and the heart to understand its worth. For those who dare to look, who dare to believe that extraordinary things can be found in the most ordinary places, the 1999 P 5-cent coin offers a timeless promise. History is never gone, it's merely waiting to be discovered. And when that discovery comes, when that perfect nickel gleams under the light once more, it reminds us that beauty, history, and fortune are never as far away as they seem. Sometimes, they are just a coin's flip away. Number 4. The year was 1991, and the winds of change swept across America with an invisible but undeniable force. The Cold War, a shadow that had loomed for decades, was finally drawing to a close. Hopes were high, and a new era of possibility seemed within reach. Across the nation, the rhythms of daily life continued, Children raced bicycles through suburban streets, newspapers thudded onto doorsteps every morning, and coins jingled in pockets as millions moved through their routines, often unaware that the smallest objects in their possession might someday become priceless treasures. Among those unnoticed companions was the 1991 D Jefferson nickel, a humble 5-cent piece quietly born in the Denver Mint, destined for a future few could imagine. The Denver Mint, nestled in the heart of Colorado, was a hive of precision and energy. Giant presses thundered day and night, transforming blank planchets into coins bearing the enduring image of Thomas Jefferson. Felix Schlag's iconic design, chosen decades earlier, remained a tribute to a man whose ideas helped forge a nation. Jefferson's portrait, facing left with an air of calm resolve, was rendered in countless millions, his gaze steady even as the world shifted around him. Behind him, the familiar inscription, "In God We Trust," stood proudly, a silent promise carried on every nickel struck. Each planchet, a simple disc of copper-nickel alloy, entered the coining chamber with the potential for greatness. Some would emerge clean and crisp, perfectly capturing every line of Jefferson's hair and every pillar of Monticello. Others, struck by dyes worn by the relentless demands of mass production, would bear only ghostly impressions, their features blurred by the toll of countless strikes. For most Americans, these distinctions meant nothing. A nickel was a nickel, a tool, a token, a forgettable necessity exchanged for candy bars, bus fare, or a lucky scratch-off ticket. But for a patient and watchful few, the 1991 D nickel held secrets worth uncovering. In dusty back rooms of coin shops and the quiet corners of small-town banks, collectors scoured rolls of nickels, hoping to spot the extraordinary among the mundane. They looked for full strikes, where every detail of Monticello's base steps remained unbroken and distinct, the revered full steps designation that signified a coin of rare and remarkable precision. They sought surfaces unscarred by handling, unmarked by the passage of time, coins that shone with the brilliance of the day they were struck. And when they found such treasures, their hearts raced with the thrill of discovery. Yet finding a truly exceptional 1991 D nickel was no simple task. Though minted in the tens of millions, coins that achieved high mid-state grades were elusive. The Denver Mint, known for high production volume, often sacrificed the crispness of strike necessary to produce full steps coins. Planchets that might have been perfect were marred by minor nicks during transport, while dies fatigued quickly under the endless demand. Only a small fraction of coins survived with the combination of luster, strike, and preservation necessary to achieve the highest accolades. Meanwhile, the numismatic world changed. Third-party grading services such as PCGS and NGC rose to prominence, bringing a new level of rigor and consistency to the hobby. Coins were no longer judged merely by the naked eye of a dealer or collector, but subjected to intense, standardized scrutiny. Every scratch, every soft strike, every tiny imperfection was cataloged and weighed. In this new world, the 1991 D nickel faced an unforgiving gauntlet. Most fell short of the highest grades, but a rare few emerged victorious, certified as MS66, MS67, or even, in breathtaking rarity, MS68, with full steps standing proud and unbroken. At major coin shows, the buzz grew louder. Dealers whispered excitedly about newly discovered gems, slabs of plastic protecting shining nickels from an ordinary year, their labels bearing the coveted full steps designation and jaw-dropping grades. Auction catalogs began to feature 1991 D nickels not merely as curiosities, but as highlights, commanding fierce bidding wars that drove prices into the stratosphere. In dusty basements and crowded living rooms, collectors who had once plucked nickels from pocket change realized that their diligence might pay off in ways they had only dared to dream. Beyond their material value, these coins carried emotional weight. They were tangible connections to a pivotal moment in American history, a time when old fears faded and new hopes dawned. They represented the patience of collectors who combed through thousands of coins in search of perfection, the excitement of discovery, and the timeless truth that treasures often hide in plain sight. Each flawless 1991 D nickel told a story, not just of minting precision, But of human passion and persistence. As the decades rolled forward, fewer and fewer untouched nickels remained. Time, as always, was the great adversary. Coins spent, lost, damaged, or simply worn into oblivion by years of handling became the norm. Those few examples that had been carefully set aside, perhaps by someone who saw a special glint, or simply by accident, grew ever more precious. Auction records climbed steadily, and soon, collectors willing to pay between $15,000 and $90,000 battled for the privilege of owning one of the finest survivors of the 1991 D minting. It was a remarkable journey for a humble nickel, from a momentary artifact of commerce to a glittering prize of numismatic art. Every gleam of luster, every sharp step of Monticello, every untouched surface spoke not only of the skill and luck of its creation, but of the deep human longing to preserve, to honor, and to remember. To hold one of these coins today is to cradle a piece of 1991 in the palm of your hand, a fragment of an era when possibilities stretched wide before an eager nation. And so, somewhere out there, perhaps in a coin shop's forgotten bin, or tucked away in an old drawer, another 1991 D nickel might still wait for discovery. For those who know how to look, who understand the stories hidden within metal and time, the adventure never ends. The ordinary can still become extraordinary. And sometimes, a simple 5-cent coin carries a value beyond imagination, glittering with a price tag as high as $90,000.